How do I know what to pick? So during the design phase of any project, you're going to be required to pick out what you want in your space. Be it flooring, plumbing fixtures, tile, trim work, doors, hardware, there's a lot of decisions to make. So I want to help you in any way possible to be equipped with the information you need to make a good decision. So let's talk about flooring. There are several types of flooring. They have pros, they have cons, they each have their place, but let's talk a little bit about it. So here we have 4 pieces of flooring. They all look like wood. They all look very similar to one another, but in reality, they are 4 very different types of floor, and they're all 4 very different materials. This one's actually an engineered hardwood. This one is a solid hardwood. This one is a luxury vinyl plank. And this one here is actually ceramic tile. So since they all look the same, how do you know what to pick? Well, let's talk about some pros and cons, where you might want to put these and strengths that each one has. So tile is going to work, any of these are going to work anywhere. But there's some nuances. So again, tile is going to work excellent in bathrooms, kitchens, laundry rooms, mudrooms. For most people, they're not going to want this in their living room. I actually have had several clients say they don't like the feeling of tile on their feet. They feel it's too cold or too hard. Totally understandable. It's not always for everybody. In most situations, ceramic or porcelain tile is going to be your most durable. It is quite impact resistant. It is long lasting. You're really not going to wear the finish off. And it's extremely water resistant. It's going to be extra water resistant if it's installed properly and it's detailed correctly. It's going to be very difficult for water to get between layers of flooring, between your subfloor and your tile, if done correctly. But again, it's going to be best suited for wet areas. That's where you're really going to see the benefits, particularly bathrooms. I have 3 small boys. So being able to clean up in my bathroom from all sorts of spills and misses, tile's been great. So in bathrooms, in kitchens, in mud rooms and laundry rooms, tile's going to be one of my first picks, but I know that based on design, it may not be everyone's first choice. Your next most durable in many cases is going to be a luxury vinyl when it comes to wet spaces, kitchens, bathrooms, mudrooms, laundry rooms. Luxury vinyl has come so far in the last decade. It's a click together product. They also make a glue down. It's what they call, if it's not a glue down, it's what they call a floating floor, where it all locks together and in reality floats on your existing floor. It's not actually fastened down to the floor in any way. It is also water resistant. You'll hear it advertised as waterproof, and the piece of flooring itself is waterproof. You could submerge this in water for 6 months to 3 years. It's not really going to change the floor. But what I always tell people is that if this is in your bathroom and your bathroom floods, your whole tub overflows, if water gets under this between the flooring and your subfloor, it's still a problem because that's not going to be able to dry and you're going to have water damage issues as well as mold. But you spill a bucket of water, you spill a glass of orange juice on it, it's going to clean up. You're not going to damage this product. Easy to clean, easy to care for. These 2 products are also going to hold up very well to pets. I've had people ask about, large dogs and their nails and scratches, as well as unfortunate accidents. These 2 are going to do very well. This is going to be more commonly used throughout a whole home. I've done whole first floors. We've done bedrooms with it. It's not as cold as tile. It's got a good feel to it. Most of them now have a pretty realistic wood texture. So a lot of people aren't going to be able to tell that this isn't real wood. Next, we have our real wood products. So this is a hardwood, solid hardwood, and this is what they call engineered hardwood. So this is solid hardwood is actually a solid piece of wood, one piece, milled, tongue and groove. Each board slides together and is fastened down. Engineered hardwood is actually layers layers of plywood in alternating directions with a top layer called the wear layer that is a solid piece of wood. Engineered hardwood is oftentimes, especially in climates such as ours, that we have a lot of temperature and humidity changes, engineered hardwood is going to be more stable, meaning it's not going to expand and contract as much. Solid hardwood is just one piece of wood, and it does expand and contract with temperature changes as well as humidity conditions. If you're a little bit more particular, if you really want a specific look or a specific feel or it to look like natural wood, one of these options is going to be best. I would most certainly recommend both of these. In climates where heat and cold and humidity change, engineered is going to be a bit more stable. It's my personal preference, but 3/4 hardwood is an excellent option as well. One of the benefits to solid hardwood is its durability as well as its ability to be refinished. If it's pre-finished from the factory, it's going to be a little more difficult to sand through that finish, but they can be sanded down and restained and refinished. Some engineered flooring will say that can be done maybe once, maybe twice. A lot of that's going to depend on how thick that wear layer is, because if you sand through that wear layer, now you're just going to see ugly plywood and it's not going to look like a hardwood floor anymore. So that's something to keep in mind. I love these in living rooms and bedrooms. In some instances, in kitchens with proper precautions. I would not recommend either of these in a bathroom. Your hardwoods become a little bit more of an issue because these will absorb odors, they will absorb stains, and they will absorb liquids faster. I have used these in powder rooms or half baths where you don't have a shower or a bathtub. If these are cleaned up right away, should not be an issue. So that's another consideration that you may need to be thinking about. All right, so let's talk about cost. That's what everyone wants to know. As far as the material goes, the purchase of the actual material, they can end up fairly similar. Luxury vinyl still probably going to be your least expensive, although in some situations an engineered can actually be on par cost-wise. Tile, these three are going to be real similar in material cost, with solid hardwood being a little bit more expensive. The real part of the cost is going to come in install and in labor. Luxury vinyl is going to install the quickest and the easiest, therefore it is going to be the least expensive to install. Then engineered is the next most inexpensive and simple to install. It's really easy to work with. You've got a lot of options with it, but it does take a little bit more time and effort to install. Then 3/4 hardwood, and then tile always being the most expensive in labor. There's obviously a lot more that goes into it. We're going to have to use underlayments and substrates that the tile can adhere to. Tile is actually going to be installed with a thin set mortar and embedded into that. Then you're going to have to grout it, more steps. So tile is going to be your most expensive of the four options. Okay, so how are these each installed? So tile is actually going to be installed with a thin set mortar and embedded into it. We're going to have an underlayment. It's going to be more time consuming, and there's a lot more that goes into installing this. Luxury vinyl plank, any of the click lock style floorings, they're going to go in the fastest. So for your click lock floorings like this luxury vinyl, they're actually just going to lock into each other, and you're going to do that throughout the floor, and then they're going to be locked in. Easy install. For engineered flooring, we're actually going to staple this in. So you can kind of see this, the guns used to staple this to the floor. The staples will go in on the tongue, so you won't see any of the staples in your finished floor. And then there's ways to enhance that install with glue. And then for your 3/4 hardwood, we're going to have a larger staple. Therefore, we're going to have a larger staple gun. This one's actually going to be mallet actuated. So not only is it hooked to a compressor, you also have to slam the mallet into the actuator in order to fire. It's a lot of fun, I think, and especially on days where you're stressed and swinging a hammer is helpful. But that's how those are installed. All right, now that you understand a little bit more about the types of flooring and what you might like to use for your project, let's go into a little bit more detail on some of the things to consider, especially when remodeling. I will see you over in the demo booth. Okay, so let's take a minute to talk about some flooring terminations and transitions. So what I mean is areas where your flooring, regardless of the type, ends at walls, doors, or other areas of flooring. So different types of flooring are going to have different, what we call underlayments, which is something that's going to separate your subfloor from your actual flooring. So for tile, you may see something like this cement board, or you may see something, like this Schluter Ditra, which is a personal favorite of mine. Those are going to space things up off the floor in different amounts, and then we're going to have to handle that differently depending on where we're at. Up against your wall, you're going to have your baseboard. Most flooring is going to be installed after baseboard in a lot of scenarios. As your flooring and your cut pieces land against your baseboard, to cover that space, you're often going to see what we call a shoe molding to finish that edge, give you that finished look, whether it's tile or wood or whatever it may be. All right, so another area in question is going to be around doors. So you're going to have your door jamb assembly, you're going to have your door casing, and we're not going to want to try to cut our flooring around that. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to come and you're going to do what we call undercutting, and you're going to cut that so that the flooring fits nice and underneath. We'll actually cut out the jamb so that your flooring sits nicely under there. Gives it a much better look. It's the only way to do it. Now, one thing in a remodel scenario to pay attention to is it's not uncommon that we'll have multiple layers of flooring, or we'll have a thick flooring that we're tearing out. So say you've got this thicker flooring that you're tearing out, and the new flooring that's going back is much thinner. Well, obviously you don't want this big ugly gap around every doorway and every door jamb throughout your first floor. So in a scenario like that, the only way to address this is either to replace all your doors and trim, which is very impractical, or to add another layer of plywood or underlayment to build the floor up. And we would build different levels, different thicknesses of underlayment to bring that up. A common scenario for this. You don't want to see two different types of flooring when the door is closed. So if we've got one type of flooring in this side, we don't want to see carpet here and flooring here. So you always make that transition in the center of the door slab, so that when the door is shut, that line is hidden. On the inside, you only see the wood or the tile, and on that side, you only see the carpet or whatever that may be. That is something you always want to do when working around doors. So that's how you want to handle doorways. Okay. All right, so transitioning between two different types of flooring is another thing to consider. So say we've got tile and underlayment in our bathroom, and we're transitioning out into the main living space where you've got luxury vinyl. Obviously that transition, especially if you've got different materials and different heights, is gonna be a little unsightly. So if you've got two different floors, you've got a couple of options. You can do something that they call a T-mold, which is shaped like a T, go figure. And it's just gonna span that distance between the two. So you've got something to create that transition. That's one option. Another option is to protect your tile edge with something like this Schluter material here. That's going to protect that tile's edge from chipping, and then it's also going to give you a nice clean surface to butt up against. That's going to create a cleaner look. If you have vinyl, you may decide to use a different kind of metal capping to cap the edge in a way that you can transition another type of flooring to it cleanly, and then this would fasten to the floor and still allow your floating floor to flex and move as needed. That's an option. Let's say this is the stairs going down into your basement. Obviously, we're not gonna just want to end you know, your wood flooring right there. That transition is going to look gross. I've seen those ugly metal caps that they put on. They look disgusting in my opinion. So a good option is something like this stair nose, which is going to come to match most of your types of flooring. So that way you can transition, you know, to a nice stair nosed edge, creating that ledge and finishing off your flooring there at the end of a stair. So that's going to be a much better way to transition your flooring that looks good and kind of transitions into that stair. That's just a few different nuances of the types of flooring, issues we may encounter during a remodel. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more information so you know what to pick. And if you didn't know before, now you know. If we run our flooring there and the door's closed, we're gonna have often what we call an underlayment.
It's okay, this. The joys of filming.